So a while ago, I was approached by Petr Pavlis from Czech Republic, I think is where he's from, about mixing live recordings, particularly of the Polish rock band, I think, TSA, which he's a fan of and has plenty of live video recordings with soundtracks that he wants to make more polished, if you like. He's got very good video production, but the soundtracks that he's either processed by himself or had help with weren't particularly good. But so yeah, he approached me asking me whether I'd actually be interested in using or doing some mixes for him, basically using my mixing technique, my approach, to see if I could get better results for him. And over the past month, I guess, I've actually done that for him on a pretty successful basis. I've currently done seven onto my eighth, I think. Seven recordings. They're all, of those seven, I rate them all pretty highly in terms of the sonic character of the final results that I've got out of them. They're all comparable. All would probably exceed the sort of quality expectation or quality that I get out of professional live recordings that I have in my DVD collection, for example. So I find them all more satisfying than those. So I think you could easily argue they're all pretty much successful. And if you've been following my YouTube channel, I've posted some shorts showing the transformation from the existing mixes of those 8-track recordings that he had transformed into what I've done for his mixes with my mixing approach. And yeah, I think those are pretty telling in terms of the improvement in sonic clarity and how much more detail you get out of it. And I did do a video on one of those albums on my mixing process applied to it. I think it was not TSA, but the Czech Republic band Citron. And at the end of that, one of those videos, I attempted to illustrate how you could take that recording and easily translate it into ATMOS, I think I was originally trying to do, and turned out to be a failure because that translation required, like the stereo mix, the original stereo mix was in 44.1K and ATMOS requires 48K, and without thinking about it, I went about doing that translation and changing the driver settings, and of course that meant OBS Studio, the sound suddenly dropped out. So whilst I captured the video, I didn't capture any of the audio. So I basically had to cut that bit from the video. So to cut a long story short, this is basically a video that I'm doing to illustrate how easy it is to take, in this case, again, one of his mixes that I've been doing. In this case, while I'm satisfied with the mix quality, the actual source material has issues that I just cannot resolve, because it basically has, one, it has some degree of clipping on most of the channels, probably not all of the channels, and then within that, the majority of the music instrument related channels, there is mixed in what sounds like a noisy microphone connection where it's continually crackling to various degrees throughout the performance. Some of the songs you don't hear it at all. Some you hear it really loudly, and it's discomforting to even listen to. But there's literally nothing I can do about that. But this material still will serve as a good illustration of how simple it is in terms of a process from going, in this case, from a stereo mix to a 7.1 mix, which is effectively actually just a 7 mix because I don't actually use the 0.1 channel. Yeah, so it's effectively going from stereo to 7. What was I going to say? The reason why I'm 7.1, why 7.1 and not ATMOS is because that's what Petter asked for, and that's what I've done for all of the other recordings. And in this particular case, I've already preset the stereo mix up to be in the 48K sample rate, which is typical of 7.1 mixes, so that I don't have that audio dropout issue again. And hopefully it'll work, so I can go through the process with it, of that with you now. So what you see in front of you is my stereo mix upsampled to 48K at the moment. If I quickly run through it, you've got all the channel content here. Each one of these channels is routed to an effects channel. The reason why I do that is because these are mono channels and these are stereo channels, and I need the stereo channel because each one of these has an instance of Spatial Panner. And if you want a stereo output, you have to be on a stereo channel. If I had this instance on a mono channel, even though the Spatial Panner would show up and function, apparently function, it wouldn't work properly because the output bus is mono. So with a mono output bus, you can't do any panning. So that's why I've got this split between the source channels here and the output channels here. Let's see, and if I look at my mix console for that, I'll just hide that. So again, there's my effects channels, and then on the output bus here, you can see I have an instance of synthetic space to give me my overall reverb, and I've got discrete early reflections turned off because the early reflections are being provided by Spatial Panning. I have my limiter instance, and I have my supervision instance to just show me how loud my mix is, various mix statistics. And if I well, before I do that as well, just so that I can play you the outcome and you'll be able to hear it. If you look at my studio setup, I'm using the Dolby Audio Bridge as the output device. So basically it's all routed through there. You should be able to see it from here. Audio connections, it's going by the audio bridge. So whatever I play here gets output to my Dolby Atmos renderer, which you can see here. So in this case, it's just stereo, so it'll just show up in those two channels. It's only going to show up in those two channels anyway because I've got it switched to stereo monitoring, so it's downgraded to stereo. But I can alter those just to illustrate that it's actually changed from stereo to 7.1 when I get to that point. But so if I just go back to my session here and quickly play it, you'll hear that indeed it's stereo. And The other thing I can say about the mix is it's actually harder and sharper than I'd like, but there's a real challenge in me actually getting that fixed up, because the main problem with that is the level of the snare drum in particular is a bit sharp and a bit strong, and there's also, I think, like a tambourine sound or something like that that is way too loud as well. But the reason why I can't actually get rid of that is, although it's got independent left-right drum tracks, the lead guitar part, it's principally the lead guitar part and the vocal part have mixed in with it a very strong and high level of drum coming through, particularly the snares, but snare drum and that tambourine sound. Whether it is a tambourine connected to the drum kit, I don't know. I'm not sure, or whether somebody was holding it, but it's got very strong levels of both of those. So I can only do, without going to elaborate means of trying to use AI to do track separation, which may or may not work effectively. I'm basically have to come up with a compromise mix that actually works, but avoids going too harsh or too muddy one way or the other. And this is basically what I came up with, and it sounds reasonable. Given the limitations of what I had to work with, I'm actually pretty pleased with it. The main thing that disappoints me about it is the fact that it's got those distortion elements in there from the clipping and that noisy microphone connection, which plagues the whole recording. But yeah, it still serves as a simple illustration of how to go about converting. So all I do to convert is what I need. Currently, you can see my spatial panner sits on stereo channels, stereo effect channels. So if I want a 7.1 mix, all I have to do is shift my instances of spatial panner from a stereo bus to a 7.1 bus. So all I do then is I go, I'll do it from here, add, where's my effects track? It's already here. I got 7.1 configuration, audio outputs. Oh yeah, well, basically probably if I want to save myself some time, I should probably go into my audio connections. I'll just say not connected. The reason why I do that is because the way Steinberg works, when you add a new bus, it puts in new channels and then it'll muck up the channel order because there's already two used. So it'll start, instead of starting from channel 1, 2, it'll start from 3, 4, blah, blah, blah. So then I'd have to reassign all the channels. So hopefully this will stop that from happening. So I'll put in my 7.1 bus. Yes, so now it's numbered correctly. So now I've got my 7.1 output bus. So that's one thing I need. I need a 7.1 bus. So now here I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, which makes sense. You've got 8 source tracks, 8 spatial panners. So I need to add my effects tracks, and it's a 7.1 in with a 7.1 out, and I don't care for the name. Doesn't really bother me what it's called at this time, and I want 8 of them, so I add those. So there's my correctly configured effects channels. So now all I need to do is go to my mix console window, So that's my first new effects channel with 7.1, and that's my first stereo one, I think. Is it? No, it's because that's a Dynamics plugin. It's this one. That's my first one there. So all I need to do is drag that to there, that to there, that to there, that to there, that to there. How many more we got? That to there, that to there, that to there. And now we've got all these output effects. Again, we've got to drag them to the stereo bus. That to there, that to there, that to there. And now the final thing is connecting these to the right effects channels because they're routed to the wrong thing. So if I click on the routing, you'll see that one needs to go to this one. So that's FX9. So we go FX9, FX10, FX11, FX12, FX13, 14, 15, and 16. So now it's all basically set up for 7.1. So I should be able to, for instance, I think it's easier to do it from here. If I select these, I don't need them anymore, so I'll get rid of those. And now, if I look on my, what do I want to look at? If I look at my mix console and play it, see what happens. So there you go. Now you can see you've got 7 channels. If I go back to here, put this in 7.1.4, which is a native format, you should see that all from channels 1 to 8 with channel, is it 4 or channel 3? One of those is the 0.1 will show as not showing, but everything else will show. So I'll play that again. So there you go, that's it. And then the one common thing that I typically find I have to do after doing that is just change the levels of the centrally panned instruments, the ones that are panned centrally, because there's like level difference implementation changes associated with the different panels between a stereo context and a 7.1. So I generally find that the center channel level instruments, panned instruments, seem weaker in a 7.1 compared to stereo. So I usually boost them up. But that's pretty much it. Nothing else to modify. But so anyway, I'll just illustrate. I'll just leave that showing. And of course now, because it's a surround format, you can actually walk around. You can move your listener around. So basically, that's pretty much it. Now, if you want to go to the trouble of repositioning all the instruments and whatever to get a different sound perspective, that's fine. But I typically find that, given that in music you typically want to have your band in front of you and everything coming from the sides and around you, just ambience and reverberation, I don't need to do anything. Like typically the only change that I ever do is the one I just mentioned, that centrally panned instruments tend to come across quieter than they need to be, so I boost the level a little bit. But that's pretty much it. So there you go, going from stereo to 7.1, and it took me, 10 minutes. It's a trivial process, which is the benefit, and yet another benefit of spatial panning, other than the fact that it's sonically superior than conventional panning, as far as I'm concerned. So I shall leave it at that and let you ponder.